All right, so we're going to be looking at 3 different FM synthesizers, like I mentioned. The first is going to be the Volca FM by Korg. We're next going to look at the Model Cycles by Elektron. And after that, we're going to look at the Liven XFM by Sonicware. So let's start with the Korg here. So this is probably the simplest of the bunch. It's least knobs, smallest form factor, most portable, but it still has some great classic FM voices in it. One thing that makes this one rather cool is that you can load through sysx files original DX7 patches. Now you're going to lose some of that because this does not have as many operators as an original DX7. I want to say this has 3 operators instead of the 7, obviously, that comes with DX7. But it's still enough there that you get some of the sounds that you'd come to expect from a classic FM synthesizer. You get those bell-like tones, you get those, well, you can see this is the chewy bass, you get sounds like that, you get those glassy, ethereal pads, and donks and plinks and all those kind of FM things that you kind of come to be used to. So for that, I think it's excellent. Just to give you a sense on some of the sounds here. One thing I like about this one, it has an arpeggiator, it has a chorus effect. I kind of take that off, put it back on. Really widens up the stereo, gives it a nice sound. It's also, you can break the voices down into poly, mono, or unison. There's also automation of parameters that you can record to the sequencer. So if you wanted to shift your operator frequency from here to there across the sequence, you could do that. So kind of like parameter locking on the Elektron stuff. So yeah, it's really a pretty cool little synth. That's like that Doogie Howser kind of sound right there. Let's lower the octave. That's called blues chord, I think. Or maybe maybe it's blues sword. Okay. I was like, blues chord does not, okay. Yeah, some cool stuff in this thing. And I do rather like it. I think it's one of the best of the Volca range. I think it's one of the most versatile for sure, one of the most musically viable, if that makes any sense. This is version 1. There is a version 2 now that took all of this great stuff and added to it quite a bit. I think it has more voices now, and it's really nice what they've done with this platform. But if you're really wanting to dabble into the world of hardware FM synthesis, this is probably your best bet, especially if you go find one secondhand on the used market. You can probably find these for about $100 to $120 US, which is a great deal. Some drawbacks: only 3 voices. The output is limited to a single stereo headphone output. Now that's kind of the same with any Volca, but it's certainly the case here. You can, of course, control it by MIDI, but it also has the sync in and out that kind of has become a standard after the Volca's initial release. So in terms of sound design, it's not going to be as deep as some of these others that we're going to look at. But if you just want those classic DX style FM sounds, very 80s kind of stuff, and more, depending on how creative you are, this is a great option. Next up, we have the Elektron Model Cycles. Mine is the evil vampire Ron Burgundy version because nothing says FM synthesis like an evil Ron Burgundy. I promise that makes sense in my brain. Alrighty, so this is an entirely different concept from the Volca. This really isn't trying to be anything else. It really is very much an Elektron thing. Those of you who've worked with Elektron stuff will kind of understand what I mean there. It certainly has some DNA in it from the Elektron Digatone, maybe perhaps even the Mono Machine. There's a little flavor in there. But again, very compact. It's certainly, I guess it's about twice the size, maybe a little more of the Volca FM, but still very easy to slip into like a laptop bag, backpack, what have you. It's you know, a solid slab of material. It feels pretty durable. Certainly has a heavier, stouter build quality, I think, than this. Does not run on batteries. There are options. I should say they have the handle tube thing now that I don't know if those are back on the market yet or not. I know they had to recall them. There's that, and then there's people that use various power banks to power it on the go. But essentially, it is more of a desktop instrument. Now, as far as the FM synthesis goes, this is not really modeling after a DX7. In fact, it's kind of got its own concept on how to implement FM synthesis. Of the 6 tracks that this instrument has, you can choose a different machine for each track. And some of the machines are closer to your classic FM synthesis, and they use operators and algorithms to kind of generate sounds, and you can tweak familiar parameters around that. And then they take other machines like metal, and they kind of just flip all that on its end, and therefore percussive sounds. All right, so let's hear a little bit of it. I've got different machines set up for different tracks here on the instrument. You can tell this is kind of a kick drum, sort of a snare. I will mention now that it's not very good at snares. I just struggle trying to find snares that I really dig. So insert your snare sounds like you know what jokes here. There's a hi-hat, kind of a chord sound, a bell sound. That's actually, it's an FM sound, but it sounds like more like a virtual analog synth. There's kind of a donk sort of thing there. So I've got so, yeah, pretty cool stuff. Now let me go. I think we need to temp save before I start editing things, but all right, so here's one of the machines, and this one is set up on metal. That's a percussive sound. And what I like here is you got a lot of knob per function things on the model cycles. There is a little bit of menu diving, but compared to a lot of instruments in this category, there's quite a bit of hands-on control that's directly accessible from the panel. Like we've got decay here. Pitch. This is metal color. Shape. Has a really nice reverb on it. I wish it had a chorus, but it does have a really nice reverb and delay. It has LFO. The LFO is assignable, which is great. Has swing and a lot of other groove things as well. And you, as always, with any Elektron box, you get their fantastic sequencer built in. So here's the chord machine. If you can see that, it says chord there. It's a nice little sound. I dig that. Here you've got unison modes or scale modes, like you major 7th. Some parameters don't do very much depending on which machine you're on. This machine is called Tone. And this one is the closest to your classic FM. And that's using Tone as well. So, I really, really like the Elektron Model Cycles. It's not great for every kind of sound. It's not an all-on-one super great studio solution, but for the area that it is in, it's really quite good, and it brings a lot of unique flavor to the table. Again, this is not your classic FM kind of sounds. This is something wholly different than that. And it's also worth mentioning that as a groove box, it's also very good. Playing live shows, just constantly twiddling and messing with the sound, it's really, really good for those kinds of things. And I will also say that the kicks on this machine are absolutely brutal. You can make some massive kicks that would rival any 808 any day of the week. I'd put this up against it. So yeah, that's the Elektron Model Cycles. Pros: cost-effective, unique, fun to work with, good groove box. Cons: not all the sounds that it makes are really great. Like I mentioned, getting a good snare out of it's pretty hard, and you kind of just have to say, all right, it is what it is, and it sounds like what it sounds like, and leave that alone. But not every type of sound is good to be generated with this, but for the ones that it does well, it does really well. All right, and last but certainly not least is the XFM by Sonicware. It's part of their Liven Groove Box range. I've done many videos on this one, as well as the bass and beats. I have the 8-bit warps as well, although I still haven't really gotten into that one that much. But yeah, this is a very unique take on FM. One thing that makes it very cool is that it's not algorithm-based FM sounds. That is to say that the 4 operators that it uses can all interact with each other freely and assignable in a myriad of ways, so you don't have to have operator 1 affecting these 3, or these 2 operators affecting these 2. Like, it's not stuck to those rigid structures, and you can have you can do freestyle. And I don't know, somebody could figure out what 4 against 4 in any number of combinations is, who's mathematically trained in that way, but I can imagine it's quite a bit. So I like their approach to FM synthesis. I like that it allows for some really unique sounds to get out of it. If you're into FM sound design, I would say this is the deepest of the group. Actually, by far, it's the deepest of the group. Just one quick example is that, for one, it has a fully shapeable envelope. So attack, decay, sustain, release, for all 4 operators, whereas the Model Cycles, you had, I think you have decay is the only envelope shaping tool that you have on that one. So anyway, just a quick example. And then it has all these really cool ways that it's kind of where the X comes in, that you can take 2 different FM patches and have them interact or morph into each other, or oscillate between the 2, and there's like, that's where you get this XLab, XForm, XLFO. XLFO should be kind of self-explanatory, and you can use that with the presets or any synth patch that you design. yourself. And it also just, I mean, I think it just, it also just sounds good. It has some nice onboard effects. And it has some really, really great synth engines. I love how deep the editing is. I love the filter on it. I don't know what kind of filter it is. I don't know if it's like a ladder or what, but it sounds good. It affects the sounds quite a bit, and adds a lot of character. And yeah, it's like they really just set out to make something very new in the FM synthesizer world when they designed this machine. In terms of size, I think it's maybe the biggest. Yeah, by just a little bit. It's probably about an inch longer than the Model Cycles. Probably close to about 3 times, maybe 2.5 times the size of the Volca FM. But it does run on batteries. You can put AA batteries on this thing and go. The power supply is the same as the Volcas, so that's kind of cool. If you've got Volcas around and you have a power supply, this will run. It will also, similarly, it has the same sync protocol. So yeah, it integrates into a setup with Volcas or pocket operators, that kind of thing, very, very easily. It's got MIDI in and MIDI out, yay. It's got audio in, which is awesome because I can sit here with something like a pocket operator drum machine, run the audio of that right in here, have it sync right there. I can apply the effects to the pocket operator. I've got a whole video about that actually, so if you ever want to see that, I'll put a link up in the top there. But yeah, this, I'll just go ahead and say this is my favorite of the 3. I think it's the most unique of the bunch. I think it offers the deepest amount of editing and sound design, and you can find yourself just tweaking on this for hours. That being said, though, you do have to use this overlay. You have to go into a totally different workflow to edit your synth sounds, and that's kind of fiddly. I don't know how else they could have done it with so much that they packed in here, but could be maybe a little off-putting if you're not into that sort of thing. But again, there's tons of presets in here that you don't even need to do that if you don't want to. I'm glad it's there. Now, cons. I don't really have a lot of cons for this. Again, I've done a deeper review on this synth before, but I wish it had a full-size output. I wish that it had a stereo pair output and I could split the signals if they're going into a mixer, so I could mess with EQ and effects and that kind of thing, or multi-track into a DAW. That would be nice. It is pretty plasticky, but again, for the price, I think it's really kind of hard to find much to complain about. The only real major concern I ever had with it was, frankly, getting to understand the workflow. I've owned a ton of groove boxes. I've owned other FM synths before this one, including a Digatone. I've owned, other Yamaha FM synths, and I've owned sequencers and all that kind of stuff. This thing was hard to get my head around, like big time. So I had to watch a lot of tutorials, and I mean, really watch them, like from beginning to end, for things to click. The manual is a bit confusing as a reference. So I don't think, even though it's very budget friendly, if you want to start off with this one, be prepared to give it time to understand the ins and outs of it. Otherwise, you might find yourself rather frustrated. But I do really like the instrument. It just sounds pretty. Very nice. So yeah, that's the 3 budget-friendly groove boxes that I am aware of. I'm sure there's other things out there that I'm forgetting, so let me know in the comments what you think I should check out next, and I'll consider that. But yeah, that's the Liven XFM, the Model Cycles by Elektron, and the original, the version 1 of the Korg Volca FM. Hope you found that interesting. See you later. One last thing here, guys, before I go. I forgot to mention, if you are interested in finding something budget friendly in the FM world, you could also always consider something vintage from the Yamaha PSS or PSR range. You can see here I've got a Yamaha PSS 380. Right here you can see it's got a lot of different editable parameters for a pretty simple but effective 2-operator FM synthesizer. There's a few of these out there, and usually most of these keyboards go in the neighborhood of $50 to $100. There's also the Yamaha PSS 480. This too is a 2-operator FM synthesizer. It has editable parameters. And there's other in the range. I think there's a 580, a 680, and then there's the PSR, which would be essentially the same things but with full-size keys. So yeah, if you're interested in a video on those things, I can do that later on. So let me know in the comments if you want to see more about the Yamaha PSS or PSR range. Thanks.